That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, let's get this going. Let's look at these week 6 matchups, talk about every single matchup here, whether we want to be starting or sitting the running backs playing in them. Of course, we are going to be having to continue to update this all the way until Sunday morning because there are going to be some different injuries that we're going to have to be tracking with complete transparency. I'm recording this on October 14th, but you know I will be live streaming literally every single day for the rest of the season. We've live streamed over 100 days in a row. So make sure you go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell next to the subscribe button if you want to be able to come out to those live streams. And most importantly, make sure that you go leave a comment if you want to get entered in to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. Nothing supports this channel more than going down there and dropping that like, leaving a comment, subscribing to the channel, except one thing, and that is going and making a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog Fantasy, they have great player props every single week. I've managed to be profitable every single week on Underdog Fantasy. Of course, that's not going to keep up throughout the entire season because we know that Underdog Fantasy probably smarter than I am. But anyway, when you go make a $10 deposit to get in some drafts, to go maybe look at some player props, you get a max deposit bonus with promo code Flock. You get daily additional entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And most importantly, you support the show more than you would ever believe. And our 2 hat winners for this video, the first one's going to be Steven Lewis says, I need a Flock hat, thanking Cap to wear while I tinker with my lineups. Come on, man. You got one, my friend. And then our next one coming up from Mike says 4-1 right now. Feeling pretty good about the rest of the season. Thanks to you, my man. I'll say if it wasn't for us, you'd probably be 5-0, but thank you so much for supporting the channel nonetheless. And yeah, I think that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into these matchups. Okay, let's go through and start it off with this London game with the Miami Dolphins and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And based on the questions we've had in the live streams over the past few nights, I know a lot of people are excited about playing Myles Gaskin in this game. Personally, I think you can find a better option. Now, yes, he's going to be my top 24 running back rankings this week. And yes, Myles Gaskin just did have a fantastic performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he had 10 receptions, multiple touchdowns. He was a top 3 running back overall. I mean, Myles Gaskin crushed against Tampa. But with Gaskin, this is a running back that has had 10 carries in 1 performance so far this season. I'm viewing him almost in the exact same light of someone that you have in Nyheim Hines from 2020. I mean, they look very similar. Or I mean, Malcolm Brown, I hate to say it, Malcolm Brown and Salvin Ahmad, they're going to continue to have a large workload in this offense. I mean, we saw back in week 4 that Myles Gaskin literally was the backup running back in Miami just 2 weeks ago. Now, I know he dominates in snaps against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but that's kind of what you would expect. I mean, I think that also if you get the Kansas City Chiefs putting up 3 touchdowns right away against the Washington football team, J.D. McKissic probably going to look pretty good compared to Antonio Gibson, knowing that they're going to completely abandon the run, knowing that they are going to have to go through and throw the ball with consistency. So I think that's possibly what you saw a week ago with Myles Gaskin against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, knowing that the Buccaneers have the best run defense in the entire NFL, knowing that the Miami Dolphins were down multiple touchdowns. It puts it in a context where Miami really can't afford to go through and run the ball consistently. They have to just be dropping back to pass every single down. And yeah, you would rather have Myles Gaskin out there for those passing downs than you would rather have just say Malcolm Brown. I mean, Gaskin's going to be the better receiving running back. Going up against Jacksonville this week, right now Miami's actually favored in this game, which is not a surprise to anybody, knowing that the Jacksonville Jaguars look atrocious and this is an organization that is falling apart at this moment. So Gaskin, I'm not nearly as excited as a lot of people. I know we've been getting some questions like start Myles Gaskin or Daryl Henderson, and I'm sitting here going, oh my God, no, Myles Gaskin's nowhere close to that same range. Probably have to start him if you have someone like Alvin Kamara and Elijah Mitchell both on bye. Maybe you had Alvin Kamara, then also an injury to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Sure, if you're desperate, play Myles Gaskin as your running back too, but I don't want to. I'm viewing him exactly like Nyheim Hines from 2020. Now, our next running back in this matchup, James Robinson. Yeah, fire up James Robinson. We saw this past week, even when Carlos Hyde's going to be active here, you should expect James Robinson to get the majority of the touches in this backfield. I mean, Carlos Hyde has had his role shrink every single week so far this season. Urban Meyer looks like he may not know what he's doing, but finally he's waking up to the fact that James Robinson is a better running back than Carlos Hyde. I mean, I'm pretty sure my mom could have told Urban Meyer that if we're going to be completely honest here, but nonetheless, James Robinson looks like he is I don't want to say exactly who he was last year. He's not going to be a top 5 running back, but instead of being a running back seeing 95% of the snaps in one of the worst offenses in football, so running back seeing 80% of the snaps in one of the worst offenses in football, plus matchup here against the Miami Dolphins. I actually think that we have James Robinson ranked as a top 12 running back this week. Yeah, I definitely want to go through and play Robinson everywhere we can. We actually have him ranked as our running back 8 in a very nice matchup against the Miami Dolphins. Now, our next game, this is going to be one that we have to continue to monitor. I mean, you got Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook facing off with the Minnesota Vikings and the Carolina Panthers. Now, let's just talk about anything that could potentially happen, because of course on Sunday morning, that's when we're going to have all the information here. This is a 1 p.m. game. If you have Christian McCaffrey active, I hate to go full galaxy brain here. I hate to just put on the hardcore research cap and go, I'm smarter than you, I'm smarter than you, I'm smarter than you. But I ran the numbers. I played out 10,000 simulations on my computer. I mean, it took me all night to get this going. But if Christian McCaffrey is active, you play Christian McCaffrey. I don't care about anything else. I don't care if he's only going to have maybe 75% of the workload that he usually does. 75% Christian McCaffrey is still better than 90% of your other running back options. Please play CMC. Don't care what the projected workload looks like. Now, if CMC is out, based on what we had with Chuba Hubbard in this backfield for Carolina a week ago, where I know back in week 3, very disappointing against the Dallas Cowboys, but that game did just get completely out of hand. In this game where you actually had a close performance between Philadelphia and Carolina, Chuba Hubbard saw 24 carries out of this backfield to Royce Freeman's 3 carries. So obviously Chuba Hubbard getting used as a 3-down running back, had 5 receptions at the same time. So if you have Christian McCaffrey missing this game, you play Chuba Hubbard. Very simple. Whoever the starting running back is for Carolina, that's going to be a player in your starting lineup. And the same exact thought process with Minnesota. I know it's very boring, but if Dalvin Cook's active, you play Dalvin Cook. No, you're not going to have your usual expectations of 22 points in this performance, because I would imagine that if Dalvin Cook is not 100% entirely, that this will be more so a running back by committee for yet another week between Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. Now, with that being said, if Dalvin Cook is active, you cannot play Alexander Mattison, because a good day for Alexander Mattison, if Dalvin Cook's in that game, is he's getting 10 touches out of the backfield in a bad matchup against the Carolina Panthers. So if Dalvin Cook plays, you play Dalvin Cook. If Alexander Mattison is the starter, you start Alexander Mattison. I hate to just keep it that simple, but that's kind of how you have to look at it. Now, our next matchup going to be the Los Angeles Chargers and the Baltimore Ravens. We cannot play anybody for Baltimore. I mean, if you're going back to this past week, the Baltimore Ravens, put up an absurd amount of points against the Indianapolis Colts. Not even points, but more so just yardage in general. And if you're looking at how they split this backfield, it was just a full-blown running back by committee. Here you have 6 carries for Latavius Murray. You have 4 carries for Ty Williams. You have 1 carry for Devonte Freeman. Then if you're looking at the usage in the receiving game, here you have 2 receptions for Tyson Williams. You have 3 receptions for Devonte Freeman. You have 2 receptions for Latavius Murray. This is a running back backfield that is so split that there's no way in hell you can consider starting any of these players, despite what you think about the offense, despite what you think about the potential matchup. You're not starting anybody in Baltimore right now. It sucks, because imagine if we would have had this offense with J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, Dobbins would be crushing right now, but that's not the case. You can't start anyone for Baltimore. And very easy with Los Angeles. Austin Eckler is my running back 1 this week. I hate to put him that high, but with the bad matchup for Derrick Henry against the Buffalo Bills, with Christian McCaffrey not being 100%, we have Eckler as our running back 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. I think if you're playing in a DFS contest, if you're going to be looking at, should you start Austin Eckler or player X? Of course you're starting Austin Eckler. I think you should smash against the Baltimore Ravens with how productive this Los Angeles Chargers offense has been. And obviously Jonathan Taylor just put up an incredible week against the Ravens. Now, our next game will be the Los Angeles Rams and the New York Giants. Right now, it looks like Daniel Jones, I was very surprised to see this, but it looks like, Daniel Jones is going to be playing this game. So, yes, that makes you more excited about Devante Booker. Yes, that makes you a lot more excited about Kadarius Toney, because this offense may be able to effectively move the ball down the field. Still, I don't think we want to be starting Devante Booker in a very tough matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. If you're looking at what we have seen from the Rams so far this season, week 1, they give up an impressive performance to David Montgomery. David Montgomery did go over 100 rushing yards, But since then, really no running back has been able to be that productive against the Los Angeles Rams. You add this defense shutting down some very capable offenses where they shut down the Seattle Seahawks, where their number one running back was Alex Collins with 47 rushing yards. Now, yes, it's Alex Collins, not necessarily a very talented running back, but at the same time, it's Devante Booker. Are we going to be trying to say something different here about Devante Booker? I think that we would just avoid this bad matchup. I'd be very willing to play Devante Booker in a future matchup if we actually have just a better game flow for this offense. If you're looking at the Carolina Panthers on October 24th, you're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs November 1st, the Las Vegas Raiders November 7th. Those are going to be the matchups you're going to play Booker, but not against the Rams, when the Rams are going to be dominating this week. And then with Daryl Henderson is a top 10 running back in my rest of season rankings. He is currently sitting at running back 9 for our rankings this week against the New York Giants. I think this is a Rams team that gets to a heavy lead. I think they look to consistently lean on Daryl Henderson down the stretch. This is a running back that has played 90% of the snaps in Los Angeles. When he's healthy, he's also getting a considerable amount of usage in the receiving game as well. Yeah, love getting Daryl Henderson here. Now our next matchup, Houston Texans versus the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, very easy. You're going to be starting Jonathan Taylor in a game that the Indianapolis Colts, while they're 1-4, they should be leading the majority of the time. The spread on this game is like 9.5 points. Right now, with the Houston Texans, this is a backfield you cannot consider playing. They did actually put up 22 points this past week against the New England Patriots. But it was split. You had 16 carries, Mark Ingram, 5 carries, Phillip Lindsay, 2 carries, David Johnson. In the receiving portion of the game, you had 5 receptions, David Johnson, and really nothing else for Mark Ingram and Phillip Lindsay. So they're all just kind of eating into each other at this point. Maybe if we had an injury to David Johnson, all of a sudden you get Phillip Lindsay with some receiving down usage, then maybe you can kind of change your mind here. But no, just everything is being cannibalized. Now our next game, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Washington football team. I am a lot more willing to play Daryl Williams in this contest than we would be with Devante Booker, and that you're expecting a lot more points scored for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Washington football team, this was a defense I thought was going to be a very good defensive unit coming into the season. However, 29 points allowed with this New York Giants offense playing against them week 2. They allowed 43 points against the Buffalo Bills. They allowed 30 points for the Atlanta Falcons. They just allowed 33 points with the New Orleans Saints. You do not have to be worried in the slightest about this Washington football team's defense. And at the same time, we know the Kansas City Chiefs, they can clean up these turnovers. They are the most productive offensive football. Play Daryl Williams. Now, in the case of Washington, I think this is intriguing in that Antonio Gibson, don't love the matchup, thinking that Antonio Gibson can be in a position where, maybe the game flow just gets out of hand, where if Washington doesn't put up points early, all of a sudden they're just in obvious catch-up mode where they're having to throw J.D. McKissic out there for an extended period of time. Probably ending up starting Antonio Gibson anyway. I do have Antonio Gibson ranked this week as our running back 14, directly ahead of players like Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, and Zach Moss. But don't love the matchup. J.D. McKissic, I think if you're playing in a full PPR format, you are desperate. Say you had an injury to Saquon Barkley, an injury to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You also have Alvin Kamara on the bye. Elijah. If you were desperate, you can play J.D. McKissic, knowing that this can be very similar to what you actually had with this Washington football team trailing the New York Giants back in week 2 on that Thursday night, where you just had J.D. McKissic in there for the majority of the game, in that you had Washington trailing pretty much the entire time. I think you could see something similar here against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, our next matchup will be the Green Bay Packers playing the Chicago Bears. With the Bears, you're not playing Damien Williams. You're not playing Khalil Herbert, because this is a pure 50-50 split. If you're looking at this, this past week, you actually had Khalil Herbert with more touches out of this backfield than you had with Damien Williams. Now, yes, Damien Williams is the running back that we prefer, because Damien Williams is going to be seeing the usage in the receiving game, which of course is fantastic if you're talking about his fantasy value. But you cannot have, in one of the worst offenses in football, Khalil Herbert coming out and getting 18 carries in a game where Damien Williams only gets 16, and then proceed to start Damien Williams in that next contest. Don't love the matchup against the Green Bay Packers. I'd imagine that Green Bay does get to a considerable lead, so maybe that gives you a little more Damien Williams in this game flow. But yeah, it looks like they're not using the David Montgomery role whenever you have David Montgomery going down. It looks like they are instead turning this into a 50-50 backfield split. And you can kind of deal with the 50-50 backfield split if this was going to be Dallas, if this was going to be Kansas City, if this was going to be, Buffalo. If you had that elite level offense that was going to have a considerable amount of trips to the red zone, sure, have that 50-50 split. Who the hell cares? But no, in Chicago, just not going to have enough points overall to go around. And now with Green Bay, A.J. Dillon has continued to increase his role every single week. Still not at the point where you can start A.J. Dillon. You're starting Aaron Jones with a tough matchup, but Aaron Jones is Aaron Jones. The Green Bay Packers are the Green Bay Packers. Don't need to talk about that. Now our next game with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Detroit Lions. You're playing Deandre Swift. Don't really need to talk about it. Deandre Swift, this is a running back. It's currently number 2 in the NFL in targets and receptions at the running back position. With Joe Mixon, on the other hand, this is someone that we're probably going to end up playing given the nice matchup he has against the Detroit Lions. We currently have Joe Mixon as our running back 15. Of course, this will be a situation you have to continue to monitor the ankle injury. We'll be giving those updates late Saturday night. I will also be live streaming every single day to continuously update and to continuously answer any start-sit questions that you may have. Just make sure you're subscribed. We'll be covering Joe Mixon more in depth a little later on. But if Joe Mixon misses this week, you can start Samaje Perine. You can't start Perine if Joe Mixon is active, and you probably need to start playing Mixon if he is. Now, our next game will be the Arizona Cardinals and the Cleveland Browns, and James Conner has 5 touchdowns over the past 3 weeks. But with that being said, you cannot start James Conner. All of his value is dependent on those touchdowns. His floor and ceiling combination in games where Chase Edmonds is healthy is going to be way too low for you to consider starting him. This is a player that had 10 points a week ago, but at the same time, if he did not have that touchdown, you would have been walking away with 4 points from your running back 2. That's not something that we can live with. A tough matchup by the Cleveland Browns. You are going to be starting both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Y'all know I didn't love Nick Chubb coming into the season, as this was a running back that wasn't going to be seeing the high value touches in his offense. He wasn't going to be getting the receptions. Also, we didn't know what the goal line workload was going to look like. Now, with that being said, I think that this goal line role is probably split going forward if you were having to project it. So I don't want to say that Kareem Hunt's going to come away with every goal line rushing touchdown, but Kareem Hunt is going to have all the usage in the receiving game. You've only had 1 reception or 1 target a game from Nick Chubb so far this season. With that being said, while you may need to lower your expectations for Nick Chubb, they're running behind the best offensive line of football, 2 very talented running backs. Not the best matchup against the Arizona Cardinals, knowing the Cardinals are a very good football team. But yeah, probably going to need to start both the Cleveland Browns running backs. Now, our next matchup will be the Dallas Cowboys and the New England Patriots, where, yes, you're lowering your expectation for Ezekiel Elliott going up against a tough matchup in the New England Patriots. We actually have Zeke ranked behind both James Robinson and Daryl Henderson this week, given this tough matchup and given the fact that you do have Tony Pollard getting touches out of this backfield. But still, Ezekiel Elliott in this Dallas Cowboys offense is so damn potent that you're having to start Ezekiel Elliott as a top 10 running back. Damien Harris, on the other hand, this is going to be a running back that I want to continue to track into Sunday. Still dealing with a chest/rib injury. And I think that here you can just fade Damien Harris in PPR formats, and that, keep in mind, we didn't love Nick Chubb because he wasn't getting any targets out of the backfield. The same thing remains with Damien Harris, and also they did have Ramondre Stevenson active this past week. Now, I know if you're looking at the workload, looks great for Stevenson, but that was mainly after the Damien Harris injury. It's not like you're going to be expecting Stevenson to be a 50-50 running back here with Damien Harris when he is fully healthy. But this is going to be a game where I think the New England Patriots trail the majority of the time, and if that's going to be the case, you don't really want to start a first and second down grinder running back, so I'd probably prefer to avoid Damien Harris in that situation. We currently have him ranked as our running back 20 behind players like Chase Edmonds, Josh Jacobs. And speaking of Josh Jacobs, let's go to our next matchup with the Las Vegas Raiders playing at Denver. Very tough matchup for both offenses here. I think that this is actually going to be a lower scoring game than most people are expecting. And with John Gruden not being in Las Vegas, really don't know exactly what to expect here with the amount of touches you're going to be getting from Kenyon Drake, from Peyton Barber, from Josh Jacobs. With that being said, I would be starting Josh Jacobs as a low-end running back too. This is someone that's increased his role as a receiver in this offense over the past 2 weeks. You really love to see it. Still very young, only a month older than Najee Harris, so it'd be understandable that this is a player that can potentially continue to get better through his NFL career. And then on the Denver side of it, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, they're neck and neck. We currently have Melvin Gordon ranked as the running back 24 this week. I think there is a chance that Denver just comes out here and takes a commanding lead if this Las Vegas Raiders offense and defense, they don't necessarily have just the coordinated effort with the head coach gone. Maybe just a lot of distractions in Las Vegas right now. I don't know. I'm too stupid to say, but I think there is an outside chance that this game maybe gets out of hand and Las Vegas doesn't show up. And in that instance, you would be excited about Melvin Gordon. Now, our next matchup, the Seattle Seahawks and the Pittsburgh Steelers. You are not starting Alex Collins under any circumstances. I mean, here with Alex Collins, this is a running back that's going to be playing in one of the worst offenses in football with Geno Smith. I don't care if it's Collins. I don't care if it's Chris Carson, to be honest. I mean, they're very similar to me, and they're going to be just in the worst offensive environment you can be, and at the same time, in the toughest matchup possible against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going to be avoiding both running backs. Don't care who the starter is. Now, with Pittsburgh, I mean, you're going to be starting Najee Harris. With Najee Harris here, we have him ranked as the running back 6, probably a little too low. Probably should have had him as the running back 4 or 5. I mean, you can see the Pittsburgh Steelers just bumping up his usage in the receiving game with no Juju Smith-Schuster. And at the same time, you can see Pittsburgh really leaning heavily on him, knowing that the Seattle Seahawks aren't going to be able to put up points. And maybe they just kind of want to play good defense. Maybe they just want to coast to a victory here. Now, our last matchup with the Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, we're going to maintain our stance that you want to be starting Zach Moss. We have Zach Moss ranked as the running back 17 this week. Great matchup against Tennessee, where you'd imagine the Buffalo Bills are going to be leading the majority of the game. With that being said, Zach Moss also does have a significant role in the red zone that we'd love to see, and he's getting some targets out of the backfield in one of the most productive offenses in football. Derrick Henry, yes, he's Derrick Henry. Don't need to talk about him. Difficult matchup. We have him ranked as our running back 3, still in tier 1. I know a lot of people are going to freak out about that, but it is what it is. Just think it's a much tougher matchup than what you've had with the Jags, the Jets over the past 2 weeks. So yeah, we're going to have him down a little bit lower than his previous finishes as running back 1. Now, thank you. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make sure you go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And yeah, I think that's it. Go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Check out those player props. Hop in a draft. Make a $10 deposit with promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Find the link in the live chat. Find it in the description of the video. Find it in the comment section. I don't care. Go get that link through our channel. That way you can get the max deposit bonus and at the same time get daily bonus entries to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. And have a great day.